My friends, if you are anything like me, then you have suffered at some level at some point in your life. I'm sure a lot of you are suffering at a high level, perhaps even right now. Here's what I've discovered. I've implemented this and it has worked very well. It's simple. Mind your mind. And what I mean by that, when I say mind your mind, is to put into awareness what is coming out of this head of ours. My inspiration for this video, these thoughts I have on this topic, and also our meeting this week in the Thumos School for Men, was this book right here. This is a fantastic book. Don't believe everything you think. Why Your Thinking is the Beginning of All Suffering by Joseph Wynn. I'm following this guy on YouTube. I'm a big fan. This book is probably in my top 5, if not in my top 3. I have highlighted all throughout this book. And the concept is this. When you and I think about the suffering that has taken place, happened in our lives, whether it's intense, moderate, or even just a low level, just perhaps enough just to not let us be completely at peace, harmony, and joy, just enough of whatever's going on. Think about how much of that has come from this head of ours, our mind. Now take it to the next level. How much of this mind, what's going on and robbing us of that peace and joy, being pleasant, is coming from our thinking? So the concept of the book is this, and I really like this concept. Thoughts come and go. Thoughts are plentiful. It's estimated that we can have up to 60,000 thoughts on any given day. How one came up with that, I will never know. I don't know how you measure that. But let's say that number is not 60,000. Let's say it's tenfold less. Let's say it's 6,000. Even that is a huge number of thoughts that go through our head, our mind. Are we our thoughts? I would say no. I think thoughts come and go. I think thoughts come from everywhere. I think thoughts come from advertisements, commercials. Even if you're like me and you don't have commercials on your TV at home, they still seem to come in and get to you. Billboards. Thoughts are coming from everywhere. Perhaps it's the collective of our consciousness, our society. The point being, those thoughts are just that. They don't have to be ours. They don't have to be owned. In fact, they shouldn't be. But those thoughts that are held tightly, that are compulsed on, they become this thing we call thinking. That thinking is the root of much, much suffering. In fact, what the book says is that's the root of all suffering. I don't know if I'll go so far as saying it's the root of all suffering, but man, it's an awful lot of suffering. Here's what I've learned, here's what I've applied, and here's what I'm hoping to help others to achieve. Those thoughts ought to be watched. Those thoughts ought to be put into awareness and just let go. Let them flow. Like if we're the ocean, those thoughts are just all the things, the debris, the seaweed, the shells, whatever it may be, we just let them flow. Because if we try to capture all of those thoughts, we're trying to hold and clench. Just think about that. If we're in the ocean and we're just grabbing and capturing and clenching and holding and trying to do something with it, to focus on it, is that really what we want? And more importantly, does that really work? I'm going to say no. I tried that a decade ago. I tried to hold my thoughts, capture, in order to get rid of those thoughts. It did not work. What is working very well for me is to be the observer of these thoughts, to let them flow, to let them go. They come and go. I don't cling, I don't attach, I don't possess, I don't own, I don't do anything with it other than to put them into awareness. There's a saying that goes, when you have these multiple thoughts and you're about to clench and hold and put some thinking on it, which is compulsing, we can ask ourselves, is this serving me? And then the second question is, if it's not serving me, will I let it go? And if not, why not? Those are just a couple of simple questions / tactics to help us put all of these dadgum thoughts into awareness, which ultimately helps to make us more pleasant, joyful, peaceful, etc. There's a saying that goes, I have never thought my way into happiness, more joy, or peace. I got to tell you, I think there's a lot of truth to that. Think of a time where you've done a lot of thinking and then see if it led to more happiness, joy, or peace. Oftentimes, the excess thinking doesn't even lead to more clarity. In fact, when I reflect back on my life and all the folks that I've been able to work with, oftentimes it's not the thinking, it's the absence of thinking in which we get our best ideas, get out of head and into heart, get the huge ahas and clarity. It's like we have to stop the monkey mind, the compulsing, the repetitive thinking, in order to get into the body, to get into the heart space perhaps, to hear from God. It's hard to hear from God when we're doing this, when we're full of busyness and clutter and discussion, even if we never open our mouth, it's going on in our minds. But if we can quiet this thing just for a little while, if we can mind our minds, we can get still. Perhaps then we hear from God, we get the clarity, we get the big aha, the breakthrough. That's why I think that activities such as weekend experiences or meditations, retreats, or a daily practice of a walking gratitude mindset, breath work, all of these different ways to just a little bit get us out of head, mind our mind, get us out of head and get us into heart, to slow us down, to have a little less yin to balance out our yang. One of the things I've noticed is if you bring up the topic of thinking and how thinking can lead to less than happiness or joy or peace, those who think the most tend to push back the most on the concept. It's fascinating, but it makes sense when I think about it. Because the analytics oftentimes have a gift around their thinking. They're really good problem solvers. Those are the men and women that you and I are calling, or should be calling, when we need help to diagnose a problem, to fix something, to figure something out. Their thinking, their mastermind, problem solving, that is their gift. The challenge is that every gift, every light brings a darker side as well. It's just the yin and yang of life. And so what I've noticed is when you tell someone, especially with a gift like that, hey, thinking is the root cause of almost all of your suffering, they don't want to hear that. But what I've also found is if they are willing to stop and listen and be curious and be open, they can balance out some of the thinking with the non-thinking, the doing with the non-doing. And when they can do that, turn off some of that thinking and give that brilliant gift of theirs, their mind, a little bit of rest, they tend to perform even better. Go figure. So friends, what I would invite you to do is be mindful of your mind. Think about your thoughts. I would encourage you to be the observer, the watcher. Let them go, let them flow. But really pay attention. Be mindful of your thinking that does not serve you well. Look, if you're thinking about gratitude and love and peace and care and kindness, keep on. You're a happy person. That's not what I'm talking about, and that's not what 99% of people default to. It's usually just the opposite. The excess compulsive thinking, it's around could'ves, would'ves, and should'ves. It's about something in front of us that might go wrong or needs to get done, or it's about something that's back there that should have been done different or we don't think served us well. I would encourage folks to be aware of that. I call that minding the gap. So this gap is where we are compared to where we want to be. And the problem, if we don't mind that gap, when we think about it, compulse, amplify it, we're essentially saying, I'm here, this is what I want, and I can't be present or grateful with what I have. I can only focus on what I want. The problem is much of that gap is the journey of life. And although there is nothing wrong with having that gap and wanting more. If we're fat, we want to be lean and mean. There is nothing wrong. But the issue comes when we're compulsing and running on the fuel of desire and grit for too long, especially, the cost of that can be relationships, joy, peace. I propose that we mind that gap. I propose that we take the necessary action, and we do that action from a place of joy and peace as we progress. Oftentimes what I find is the thinking is around something that really does need to get done. Pay a bill, get the car serviced, whatever it may be. And what I will find, because I'm a compulsive creature, I do tend to get stuff done, which leads to success. But I want success from a place of joy, by the way. I will give something 100 thoughts, perhaps, before the needed action is taken. All of those thoughts cost energy. So how much energy did I give something, and was it the best ROI? The answer for me is most of the time, no, it has not been, at least in my past. So what I will do now is I will ask the question, is this adding value? Does this thinking serve me? Can I do something about whatever needs to be done now? If the answer is yes, I'll stop and go do it. If the answer is no, for whatever reason, then I'll just go mark it in my calendar. And so therefore, I'm not going to forget it. Because see, the ego keeps bringing it up because it knows something needs to get done. And that's the job of the ego. A key job is to get stuff done, to build what needs to be built, to do what needs to be built, to protect what needs to be protecting. Thank you, ego, for what you do. I appreciate you. You're just a little bit overactive, and I'm going to put you back in my back pocket for a little while, and I'm going to run more off my true self than just my false self. So I'll go in and make a calendar entry, then I can give myself permission to stop thinking about it, and I can come back to home base. Love, joy, peace, all best turned on for me through gratitude. So ultimately what I'm doing is working so well is I'm learning to replace excess thinking. And if you struggle with that word thinking, by the way, okay, put in a word like worry is a great word, fear, because that's essentially what we're talking about, is those less than desirable emotions that aren't totally bad. They can be a catalyst for good action that's needed, but repetitive and compulsive, they are not serving us. So what I'm learning to do is to put in awareness, this excess thinking, and replace it with a practice of gratitude. I have noticed in my life, in the lives of so many men and women, when we are truly in gratitude, whether that's a mantra, whether that's a practice, whether that's an AM walk. I find it best AM walks, but peppered throughout the day. When I'm truly in gratitude, I'm more loving, generous, kind. It is the language of God. It is a fantastic place to be. So my friends, I hope this helps. If you like this stuff, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe to the channel. We're like 2 people away from 2,000. I never thought I was going to get to 100, so this is really cool. I appreciate you sharing this, letting others know about it. Give some thought to your thinking. Be mindful of your mind, especially the thinking, and consider replacing those repetitive, all of that thinking with something more pure and simple like gratitude. Hope this helps.